Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller Forecast for Libra for July 2016. Go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com, check out my blog, become part of my community with my free email newsletter, sign up there. And if you're interested in learning astrology with me, with an intimate group of fellow astrology zealots, you can see more about my Astrology Apprenticeship program that's enrolling in July, and my Creating Successful Online Business program that's enrolling in July as well. So what's going on in the month of July? This is a time to act. It's one of the three only windows this year that really carry strong forward movement. So I'll go into more details when I talk about the general transits as to why I recommend this as a time to act. But first I want to talk about some things specific for Libra. When I look at the aspects for each month to see what is different about each month for this horoscope than the one before it or the one after, one of the things I look at is to see where personal planets are converging. Personal planets are the ones that move quickly, like the sun, wherever the new moon is going to be, the Mercury, Venus, etc. And wherever there are clusters of these planets, it's like a short-term focus, a burst of energy in a certain field of experience. I also like to break down this area of focus by your early, middle, and late degree placements, because the chart of an early degree Libra placement looks quite different than the chart of a late degree Libra placement, and sometimes the timing is very often staggered by a notable amount of time. So the early degree placements are the September born up through like October 2nd, or if you're watching for your rising sign, 0 through 9 degrees of Libra. The middle degree placements are like October 3rd through the 12th, or 10 to 19 degrees of Libra for rising. The late degree placements are around October 13th through the end of the sign, or 20 to 29 degrees for rising. So the early degree placements and some middle degree placements have this strong focus: the sun, Mercury, Venus, the new moon, in the 10th house of your place in the world. The 10th house has to do with your career, your work, your life purpose, your father figures, your authority figures, your role as an authority figure, your place out in the world. What are you doing? What are you bringing? What are you doing in the world? What are you supposed to be doing in the world? This is the 10th house. So any of those things can be accentuated. There's a lot of strong energy around having recognition or advancement, especially now that we have so much forward movement, and being noticed in the workplace, having positive, enlightened moments about what it is that you're doing, what you're supposed to be doing. If you're trying to figure out what you're supposed to be doing, I strongly recommend that you study the North Node in your chart. You want to look at the sign of the North Node in your chart, and you want to look at the house. This is something I look at in every reading I do, and I can assist you with this, or you can research things for yourself. There's a book called Astrology for the Soul. It's one of my all-time favorite astrology books by Jan Spiller. And in this book, she just talks about North Nodes, and it's their counterpart, the South Node. The North Node and the South Node are counterparts. The South Node is like what you came in with, your gifts, your karma, your blocks, your things to get through, and the North Node is where you're supposed to be bringing it. And so this 10th house is like being accentuated like this, is just asking that question, what are you here to do? What do you want to do? What is your soul leading you towards? The rest of the middle to later degree placements have a very strong focus on the 9th house. The 9th house has to do with expanding your horizons, seeing beyond where you've seen. I always forget the name of this movie. It's kind of a crazy movie, and I don't want to. It might actually be a spoiler if I can remember it anyway. So it's better that I don't. But it's basically about these people, including children, that live in this certain place, and it's very, we'll say, sheltered. And they think that that's all that there is. But just on the end of this area that they're not supposed to go is like civilization, as we know it, as many people know it. And it's crazy because that's just right next door to it. And that's what this energy is with the ninth house. It's about different countries and different cultures and different languages and different religions, and the keys that tie together the things that seem to be different, the places where everything is similar, different philosophies and teaching and learning and writing and communicating and publishing and things that bring things out, talking about the oneness behind everything, basically solutions and expanding of horizons is the general energy of the ninth house. So with so much focus there, you could find yourself either being ravenously attracted to learning and exposing yourself to different things that you were never interested in before. There are things that you might have poo-pooed that if you look into them, they could be completely life-changing. I love when something like this happens, that's something that I'm just like, yeah, I'm not really sure about that, becomes something really important. I've had this experience recently with coffee. Obviously, if you know anything about my personality, I don't really need coffee, and it might be a little scary to think about what I might look like on coffee. But I had circumstances where I was intuitively drawn to coffee, only to find out that because of something I had going on, it was exactly what I needed and it was beneficial for me. And now I'm like entering the world of coffee after my whole life of not being a coffee drinker. And I'm just like, whoa, it's crazy. My horizons are completely expanded. So it's like this energy of expanding your horizons is very strong for many, many Libras at this time. So a longer term transit has to do with where Jupiter is placed. Jupiter had been very sleepy up until May, and then it was moving direct and starting to spark this forward movement. But because Mercury and Mars were still retrograde, it wasn't like bringing it in the full way. But now in July, we've got no Mercury shadow period anymore. We have Mars direct, even though there's still a shadow period, it's direct. We have Jupiter direct, and Jupiter is conjunct the North Node, which it has been for a while. So speaking of this North Node, we talked about the 10th house as it relates to what you're here to do. And the North Node in the natal chart tells you what you're here to do. The North Node in the transit chart shows you where you can find clues that lead you along the path of your individual highest expression, and where we collectively are finding clues to lead us on our collective path of evolution. So with Jupiter, the great expander, conjunct the North Node, it's like the universe saying, hey, everybody, it's time to wake up, And so it's very, very exciting, just moments of clarity and insights and important information coming in where you're like, oh my gosh, I get it now, Jupiter wants to do that, and specifically for early and some middle degree placements, and this is coming soon for the rest of you, so pay attention so that you can kind of preempt it when it shows up, has to do with expanding your intuition and your understanding of the workings of your unconscious mind. The unconscious mind is the treasure trove of our creative faculties. We can find all of our problems there. We can find all of our gifts there. We can find all of our blocks and limitations there. And when you have Jupiter, the great expander, moving through the 12th house, for many people, it awakens their intuition. For people who are not surrounded by people like me who talk about this stuff all the time, or like in mundane society where that's weird or that's woo-woo or that's strange because it's not like something you can see right before you. It can be very confusing and stressful for people because they're like, am I going crazy? Like I had a dream about something and it happened, or I had a feeling about something and it happened, and this synchronicity. For those of you who doubt intuition as a truth of our experience, I would like to put out there this idea about cell phones. If you go to call someone on a cell phone, whether they're in your country or out of the country, or even if you're on Skype, I regularly talk to people in every different country imaginable. And you do that, I do it on my computer, right? When you send a cell phone call or a Skype call, you don't really think too much about how it's working, right? You don't think like, okay, well, this is beaming a message to this wire that's transmitting it to this satellite, or maybe it's going directly to a satellite, however it works. I don't know exactly how it works, but I know that it beams energy that people can't see to something else that people can't see, to only to be bounced back to the other side of the equation. But nobody is like, oh my gosh, I don't know why this is happening. This isn't happening. I can't be talking to someone over across the world or in a different state or whatever. This isn't happening. I don't believe it because I can't see it. I can't see it, so I don't believe it. No, nobody does that. You're like, okay, you make a phone call and there's no drama around it. And that's what intuition is like. So it's confusing to me why someone wouldn't question what goes on with a cell phone call, but they would question a connection that people have in an unspoken, quiet psychic space, because it's exactly the same thing as far as I'm concerned, you know? We just have not uncovered the mystery of the mechanics behind it the way that we have with things like cell phones and stuff like that. So this period of time, or the time coming soon for Libras, is all about this expansion of your intuition, this understanding that your blocks are within you, your opportunities are within you, and you cast that which you have brought with you genetically and from your soul's journey. You cast that out onto the screen before you that is your life, that becomes your life. So if you're not happy with the quality of experience you have out there, you have to shift something that's going on inside. And Jupiter in this placement is amazing for this because it gives you the drive, the access, the resources, the synchronicities that start to piece these things together. For some people, it will be less esoteric and it'll be just straight psychotherapy. You know, nothing spiritual necessarily about it. And that's fine too. It has to do with accessing the inner workings of your mind through dreams, through lucid dreaming, through whatever ways, through use of subliminal programs, which I make some. You can see them on my website, anniehelpsyou.com, and click on Train Your Brain. One of the first exposure I had to using the power of the subconscious mind was with subliminal programs that I listened to on cassette tapes back in that time. I would listen with my tape Walkman and walk with these things, and all of the things that I had, like 25 different things I was working on with those tapes, and then later CDs, you know, now there's MP3s and all that, which are like the ones I make, but all of those things I was working on then are just like commonplace, normal for me now, you know, because it got programmed in there and my life became that. So that's where the answers are. So for the rest of you that don't have this happening yet, you still have this expansion in your 11th house, which has to do with communities. It has to do with building bridges between worlds or between people or between countries or languages or alternative medicine and mainstream medicine. You know, this energy of bridge building, community, teams, groups, organizations, humanitarian efforts, social media, social interactions, friendships, acquaintances, anything having to do with the internet, anything having to do with technology or advanced systems, things like that. You've got Jupiter working hard in that field of experience for you now, bringing opportunities and growth. So those are the things that are specific for Libra, but we've got some important general transits that I'd like to talk about. So I call this month Sugar and Spice because the way that the energies of Cancer, which are like smooth and sweet, come together with the energies of Leo, which are spicy, it reminds me of a recipe, a favorite recipe that I put together myself called Sexy Peach Pie. I haven't talked about my Sexy Peach Pie in a while. I think it's been years since I've mentioned this. But the month just feels like that to me because there's honey and the peaches in the pie, and that's like the sweet, sultry Cancer energy. And then I put cayenne pepper in it, enough to notice. And that is the Leo, the spice, you know? And so this is the overriding energy of the month. One of the most important things to know about this month for everyone is that this is a time to act. Unless, of course, your intuition says something otherwise, because you always have to have your intuition supersede what general energies might be. But this is the first month since March that we don't have influence from Mercury retrograde. Mercury's retrograde phase long past, and we don't have that to look at until August 10th when the shadow period starts again. And Mars has gone direct as of June 29th. So we are still in the shadow period of Mars retrograde, which means that Mars, which rules your oomph, your zest, your get up and go, how you use your energy, Mars is still a little sleepy. But it's direct nonetheless. So if you have been waiting since March to launch a bunch of things like I have, July is a wonderful time to do that. It's not as clear in some ways as the last 3 weeks of October, the whole month of November, and just the beginning several days of December, because that next window of time for action is when we don't have any personal planet retrograde influence or in shadow period. And that period of time, October, November, December, like once we're about a week into October, the rest of October, November, and the beginning of December, is the first time in the entire year of 2016 that we don't have influence from a personal planet being retrograde. Personal planets are the ones that are closest to us. So specifically, we talk about Mars and Venus and Mercury because those are the ones that go retrograde. So you have a window of time here to act. And I have 3 reasons why I feel like this is a time to act, unless you're intuitively led to do your launches in the fall, in which case that would be fine too. The first is because we're not having to deal with Mercury retrograde. The second is because Mars is sleepy, but Mars is direct. The third is because there are amazing aspects this month. There are just so many glorious aspects. Many of them are trines. Trines are 120-degree angles, which are considered to be the most favorable in astrology as far as smoothness and easiness and flow. So we've got trines between personal planets, which last like a couple of days. And then we have trines between a personal planet and some outer planets, and those last, more than that, like maybe a week or so. And then we still have a carryover from the big dog trine from last month, the last week in June, where Jupiter and Pluto had their final convergence. They've been dancing in and out of this configuration since fall of 2015. So you still have Jupiter and Pluto, these outer planets. When the outer planets move into any kind of convergence, the effects of that connection last for a longer period of time because these planets take longer to move. So they're kind of just like locked in a configuration. And even though the most powerful time of the energy has passed, it's just recently passed and you're still very much feeling it. So trines on all levels. There's a couple of dicey spots this month, one on July 11th and one on July 16th. Both could possibly be jarring aspects with Uranus. So you kind of expect the unexpected around those times, jolting news, jolting information that comes in. But the predominating energy of the month is really smooth, time for action, time to move forward. Another day to pay attention to, or the days around this day, is July 19th, when we have the full moon at 27 degrees of Capricorn. Full moons bring fullness, completion, fruition. Sometimes something comes in that you've been hoping for, or something wonderful happens so that you're emotional in a happy way. But sometimes the emotions are stressful, or stress or drama. So the energy is focused around Capricorn, and Capricorn rules father figures, authority figures, your work, your career, your life purpose. So there's possibility that a lot of smiles and recognition could come in from this fullness, but there's also the possibility of attention being brought to a work issue or, something that's been pending, that's been stressful. If you have anything with a father figure, with an authority figure, with someone at work, especially an authority figure situation at work, my recommendation is to work out the charge around that situation as much as possible before the full moon. Sometimes full moons bring things that we could not have anticipated, and it's just kind of like, what? Where did that come from? But sometimes it's like the coming to a head of something that's been pending. So if you know that every time you see a certain person at work, there's like a bad energy between you, or that you get irritated or stressed when you see them, you can do energy before the full moon to work it out within yourself. And one of the best tools that I have found to do this, and it works powerfully, I've done this at workshops where people who don't know anything about the book I'm going to recommend did this exercise and they had amazing effects. It's from a book called The Marriage of Spirit by Leslie Temple Thurston with Brad Laughlin. And these are wonderful people, and this book is amazing, amazing spiritual tool. The exercises in section 2 give you this way to work out a problem that's on your mind, where it's like a mental exercise, but then it's also a spiritual exercise. And you'd be surprised at what you can clear on your own without even interacting with someone. So the more you can do that before these points of fullness, the easier possibly they could be. So at the end of the month, we've got a series of nice aspects with the planet Uranus, bringing creativity and genius and surprises that will likely be positive. The ones on the 11th and the 16th are those kind of unwelcome surprises usually. But when that planet is in a positive aspect, usually it's like something comes from the blue that's pretty cool. So something that is going on, that is pending for us to be discussing again, that I'm just going to bring up now, even though it doesn't actually go direct until August, is Saturn in Sagittarius. Saturn moved into Sagittarius and started, and this was last year, or actually at the end of 2014. This has been ongoing, and then it moved forward, and then it moved backwards, back into Scorpio, and so it's been going on. But since March, Saturn has been retrograde. And when it's in retrograde, it's more working on things in the backdrop. But then once it moves forward, which will happen in August, it's time to start bringing those things back into the forefront. So here are the two things I recommend involving Saturn and Sagittarius. The first is to understand that Saturn in Sag wants to help you bring about your big dreams into reality. Saturn is the taskmaster. Sag is the big thinker. They're not in an easy aspect with each other generally, or in a resonance with each other, but they can be very helpful to each other because they provide this important counterbalance. So whatever big dreams, big goals, destiny, something that just seems maybe even unreachable. Like if someone asked you, what is it that you really would like to do if you had all the resources and the wherewithal to do it? Those kind of big dreams. Saturn wants to help you in the time that it's in Sagittarius to create those big dreams. But what Saturn's going to say you have to do is to work hard and to be disciplined and to get efficient with your energy. That's a higher version of the energy of Capricorn. The lower vibration can be just kind of addicted to work and work for the sake of itself. But the higher vibration of Capricorn, which Saturn rules, which is why it's involved here, is that it wants you to work smarter. And this is a theme that I've been talking about for a while, and I'm going to keep talking about it because this is part of our evolution, if we choose to accept it, where we work smarter instead of harder. We might also work a little harder, but we wind up working smarter. So if you figure out the dream, get clear about it, then make a timeline about what would have to happen in order for you to get there, and then break it down into measurable steps. So if you want to be a filmmaker, right, you would have to first get a good camera, right? Maybe you need some training. Maybe you need to be able to take trips to the places where you want to do filming. Maybe you need to have a screenplay. Maybe you need to, whatever it is. So get the big dream in your mind. Think about the things that you would need for creating that, and then keep breaking those down into what you have to do every day to get to the big dream. And that's what Saturn wants to help you do. So here in July, right before it's about to go direct, be thinking about this so that you can have your plan ready. So these are the general energies of the month for everyone. And if you would like some assistance in using these energies and the ones that are more specific to your chart, which I can't see in the general horoscopes, then check out my website, anniehelpsyou.com. You can see more about my personal coaching. You can also sign up for my free email newsletter and become part of my community and get the write-ups that I talk about with more detailed explanations of the aspects and what planets are involved, etc. And definitely check out, if you're interested in learning astrology and you resonate with how I teach, my Astrology Apprenticeship program will be enrolling in July, and my Creating Successful Online Business program will be enrolling in July. And I have lots of self-development programs on my website as well, and my blog. So go to anniehelpsyou.com, and I hope you have a wonderful month. See you next month. Bye.